For the understanding of human problems, such as fear, loneliness, and sorrow, your statement, the observer is the observed, seems to be all important. However, the logic of that statement doesn't seem to go beyond the intellectual level. Why is it that certain facts remain mere concepts? For the understanding of the human problems, such as fear, loneliness, and sorrow, your statement, quote, the observer is the observed, seems to be all important. However, the logic of that statement doesn't seem to go beyond the intellectual level. Why is it that certain facts remain mere concepts? What do we mean by understanding? The word understanding. When you say, I understand, what do you mean by that? Do you understand the meaning of the words? Or do you mean understanding the implication of the words, which is the sound of the words? Or you understand it so-called intellectually? That is, you have understood the meaning of the words, and the meaning remains as a concept in the brain. Right? So understanding, does it mean merely a verbal comprehension, or an understanding, which is you have investigated, observed, searched, questioned, doubted, and you come to a point, say, yes, I've got it. Which is it when you use the word understand? And that's our difficulty. You hear a statement, as we have made it just now, and you make that statement make from that statement an abstraction, the juice of that statement, and then make it into an idea. And the idea becomes all important, not this fact. Right? Are we together in this? Little bit. Aren't you doing that now? Aren't you, when the speaker says, what do you mean by understanding? Is merely words, grasping the meaning, intellectually the significance, the verbal connotations and so on, you grasp it intellectually, which is only very, very part of understanding. Intellect as a part, but when that part becomes the all-important, then you neglect every other part. So, when you understand something, that understanding is action, not just understanding. Say, for example, I understand the nature of violence. Not only physical violence, but the whole complex nature of violence. I not only understand it, I see the consequences of all violence and the implications, the different forms of violence. I look at the whole of it, not just a part of it. How we escape into this fanciful idea of non-violence. I include all that and look at it. Then, when the looking takes place, you are giving attention to it, and therefore going beyond it. Right. Now, for the understanding of all human existence, problems such as fear, loneliness, and sorrow, your statement, the observer is the observed, seems to be all important. Let's go into that, shall we? The observer and the observed. Have you ever looked at the moon, full moon, or the new moon, the beauty of a new moon, the slender sliver of light in the western sky, or the full moon of the other night? Have you looked at it? When you look at it, who is looking at it? Please follow this, if you don't mind, a little bit. Don't be bored, just follow it. I look at that new moon. Do I look at it as though for the first time, or I look at it saying that the new moon, it's going to be full moon in a fortnight's time? So I immediately put what I see into words, right? Right, sir? Can I look at that new moon without the word? Right? Because the word is not the moon. The word moon is not the actual moon in the sky. But when you look at something, our immediate reaction is to put it into words. This is obvious, huh? When I look at my wife, I say she's my wife. We never look at her as though for the first time without the word, without the memory, without all the implications of a wife or a husband. So can you, to make it very simple, can you look at a tree or a flower without the word? Have you ever tried it? Have you ever done it? Without the word. Then you will see how the word distorts the fact. Right? When you say, she is my wife, or he is my husband or girlfriend, and so on, that very verbalization of a human being who is living, you have put that human being into a word. Therefore, that word is limited. You understand all this? We understand a little bit of all this. It's extraordinary. So can you look at something without the word? Can you look, as you're sitting there, looking at this figure, can you look at this figure without the word, without the image, without the reputation, without all that nonsense. Can you look at him? Is not the word the observer? Do you understand this? Is not the word and the image, the memory, is not all that the observer? Is not the background? Being a Hindu, with all the superstitions, with all the beliefs, with all the implications, or if you are a Muslim, with all the, it's that background. It is the memory that gives the observer as though it was different from the thing observed, right? Are you following this little bit? Or we're wasting time? So can you look, observe, without the background, without the past memories impinging upon the thing being observed? When you do that, there is only that thing which is being observed. There is no observer observing, seeing the thing observed. You have a little understood this? Sir, when there is a difference between the observer or the one who witnesses, between the observer and the observed, when there is a division between the two, as we said before, wherever there is division, there must be conflict. Right? And to understand why human beings live in conflict from the moment they are born till they die, is to find out why this division exists between the observer and the observed and so on. Or there is only the thing observed. What, sir?
May I say a little, sir?
You're delighted, sir.
I think the statement that observer and the observer are the same is merely a thought on the word. Observer is a living thing and the observed is something which is not living.
Will you come up here, sir, and translate what they're saying?
He thinks the observer is a dead thing.
Is it?
He thinks
Shall I come down?
Don't come down. Don't come. Takes too long. Hold on. Has he disappeared?
Shall I come down and repeat it?
May I say something? This is what you like. Talking, shouting, all. Has he disappeared? All right, so let's go on. I'm glad you're being entertained. So this is not an entertainment, for God's sake. So what we're saying is, wherever there is a division, there must be conflict. Right? That's a law. Eternal law. Where there is separation, a division, a breaking up into two parts, there must be conflict. And that conflict becomes ultimately war, killing people. As is being shown now in the world, America, Russia, in Lebanon, Muslim, the Islamic world, and the non-Islamic world, they are in conflict. So, to understand and so be free of conflict, really be free of it, is to understand why the observer becomes so dominant, separating from him or her from the thing being observed. Right? Right, sir? When I observe, if I'm married or I have a girlfriend, there is a division between us. Actual, not only physical division, but traditional division, the authority of the parent, the authority of someone. So there is a division always in our relationships. And therefore there is always conflict between human beings. There are very few human beings in the world that have a relationship in which conflict doesn't exist. And that conflict exists because we have separated the observer from the observed. I am different from my anger, right? I am different from my envy. I am different from my sorrow. Therefore, being different, there is conflict. That is, I must get rid of sorrow, or I must overcome sorrow. Tell me how to overcome sorrow. Tell me what to do with my fear. So there is conflict all the time. But you are sorrow. You're not different from sorrow, are you? You're not different from anger, are you? You're not different from your sexual desires, are you? You're not different from the loneliness which you feel. You are lonely. But we say, I'm lonely, but I must escape from that. So I go to the temple and being entertained and so on. You are not different from the quality of which you are. The quality is you. I am anger. I am sorrow. I am lonely, depressed. Now, before, when I separated, I acted upon my sorrow. You understand? If I am lonely, I then escape from loneliness. Try to overcome it, or say, analyze it, and try to fill the loneliness with all kinds of amusements or religious activity. But if I am lonely, I can't do anything about it, right? You understand this, right? No. Right? Please tell me. If I am lonely, And I am lonely, not I am lonely, something different from me. I am that. Before I acted upon it. Now I can't act upon it because I am that. So what happens when the observer is the observed? Do you understand? When the angry is me, then what takes place? Have you inquired into this? Or just says, I'm not, I'm the observer, I'm the observed. It's meaningless. But find out, or experience, go into it and find out if anger is always different from you. That has been the tradition, that has been the conditioning, say, I am different from my anger. Therefore, you acted upon it. But when you realize you are anger, then what do you do? What happens? First, all conflict ceases. Right? Right? Somebody. Are you following this little bit? All conflict ceases when you realize you are that. I am brown, finished. It's a fact. Light brown or dark brown or purple or whatever color it is. So you eliminate altogether this divisive process which brings conflict in yourself. And why is it, questioner asks, that we make an abstraction of a fact? The fact is I am anger, I am jealous, I am lonely. Why do we make that into an idea, an abstraction of it? Is it easier to make an abstraction rather than to face the fact? Because with the idea, I can play with it. I say, yes, this is a good idea, it's a bad idea, convince me about it, not convince. You follow? I can go on. But when there is no abstraction but a fact, then I have to deal with it. And then I separate myself and then say, I'm going to do something about it. But when one realizes there is no separation, you are that, you are what is. You are a Hindu, you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, you are a businessman, you are ugly, you are brutal, you are all that. Then you have eliminated altogether this sense of division in you. And therefore, no conflict. Do you know what the brain is like when there is no conflict? When the brain is in perpetual conflict, as most people's brains are, what happens to that brain? It's wounded, right? It's wounded, hurt. What's up? Sir? Sir, I'm in the middle of a... Sit down. Come up here, sir. Come and sit down. I love to sit. Sorry, sir. Sir, poor chap, he's come all that way. Let him ask the question. Little later, sir. Let me finish. probably you have lived so long with conflict, with pain and sorrow, fear. And this conflict, you have said, it's part of my life, I'll accept conflict. And you have gone on that way. But you have never inquired what conflict does to the brain, to a human being, to the psyche. You know, it's being perpetually beaten. If one is constantly beaten physically, do you know what happens? Constantly bombarded with conflict, what happens to the brain? It shrinks. It becomes very small, limited, ugly. That's what's happening to all of us. So the fairly intelligent man asks, why should I live in conflict for the rest of my life? So he begins to inquire, what is conflict? Conflict must exist where there is division, inside and as well as outside. And this division deeply, fundamentally is the me, the observer, and the thing observed. Two separate activities going on, which is not true. Because you are angry, you are violent. So if you come to that point, realize that the observer is the observed, then there is totally different activity going on. Now, sir, what did you want to say?
You are telling I am the anger, because anger is a condition of my mind, and sorrow is also a condition of my mind. Happiness and unhappiness, anger, these are all conditions of my mind. Because I know my mind, because I am not my mind. My mind is different from me, because it is my mind. It is my mind means it is, I am not the mind.
I understand.
Mind is entirely different from me.
Yes.
So I know the conditions of my mind. Because you see, it is sometimes in happy condition, it is in sometimes unhappy condition, it is in sometimes sorrow condition. Because when I get one thought previously in old memory,
yes,
when I
sir.
recollect,
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
immediately my mind goes on recollecting that
Yes,
memory,
sir.
and it
Yes,
is
sir.
always weeping. It was, and sometimes,
Why?
please,
I understand it very well.
let me understand.
Do you want to come here and give us a talk?
So, what I if I know my anger, it is not anger. When I won't identify
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
it is not anger.
Hey, come on. Now give him a lecture, sir.
No, sir, excuse me, sir.
You've said it, sir.
No, sir, when I know my anger, it is not a anger. Why? Because I am knowing my anger. When I identify myself with the anger, immediately the action will come out. Is it or correct or not? Please understand me, I am not discouraging or anybody. When I
have to understand, sir. We were...
Krishnamurti, don't misunderstand. Sir,
Sit here quiet.
no, because I
Sir,
just...
sit here quiet. Sit down, sir. Sit down. Now that you are here, sit down. Maybe. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. Now you have heard what Kay has been talking about this morning. You have heard various responses, various answers to questions, and we go away rather confused, not clear, but if we listen to each other, I've listened to this gentleman, really listened. And there's no conflict between him, the speaker and himself, because he's listened. He knows what he has to say. If we could just, for one day or 1 hour, see what conflict is, why we human beings are caught in conflict, with all the pain and the anxiety, all that, then perhaps we will be able to live a life with a brain that has never been harmed, never had any wound, any shock, so that it's a free brain. And it's only then that perhaps the mind, which is love, can contact the brain. That's all.